Hello, everyone. Jim Coventry from RotoWire here, going over today's NFL training camp news and notes from a fantasy football perspective. Our headline story today is going to be the Chiefs passing attack. The news that came up today was Juju Smith-Schuster has returned to practice from a knee injury. He missed some practice time back on the field. So right now, with no more preseason games, about 2 weeks roughly till the regular season starts, all of the Chiefs receivers are healthy. But we need to talk about the overall passing game and what we can expect this year. So first of all, there is a very wide range of outcomes for the Kansas City passing attack. Look, defenses, we saw it last year. They're going to drop 7. We saw Cincinnati drop 8. The whole point of that was to keep Patrick Mahomes from making big downfield plays. And look, you remember that Buffalo game where Tyreek Hill caught that underneath pass and outran everybody for 60 yards? Well, Tyreek Hill is gone. They have nobody like that anymore. So now limiting Mahomes' big plays is paramount. And first of all, defenses now, we know it will provide the Chiefs with 2 things. First of all, they will have room to throw the ball underneath as much as they like. There will be coverage underneath. There will be bodies there, but there will be lanes, and they'll be able to move the chains if they choose. They also will have lots of opportunities to run the ball. Think about that Cincinnati playoff game that they lost. Jerick McKinnon was going for like 7 yards a pop, but then Andy Reid just gave up on it because they wanted to throw. So that takes us back to Andy Reid's history. Andy Reid does not want to consistently run the ball. He believes in the pass. He's a pass-first coach. I just don't see a scenario where he pockets Patrick Mahomes and he commits to the running game. If he was able to do that, if he did that for 3 straight weeks to start the seasons, defenses would have to treat them differently, because then they would say, oh, they're committed. We have to play the run now. That would potentially solve their problems and allow them to do much more offensively. I don't think he'll do that. He can't seem to change those stripes. So now the underneath throws. After we saw defenses make those switches on Mahomes last year, dropping people way back in coverage, we would see they would come into game with the game plan. We're going to take what they gave us. And he would do it for a quarter. And then all of a sudden, the second quarter, he would start to hold the ball a little longer, see if something was developing. You could tell it wasn't in Mahomes' DNA to play the dink and dunk game. Tom Brady can do it. Aaron Rodgers can do it, because they just know whatever they have to do to win, they're going to do. I'm not saying Mahomes isn't playing to win. He certainly is, but he wants to do it on his terms. He wants to dictate the pace, whereas Rodgers and Brady understand, if you dictate to me, then this is what I'm going to do. I will take what you give me. I can do the 17-play drive because I'm not making a mistake. So that was the problem with the Chiefs offense last year. Mahomes would start out strong, and he would end the game almost every week under 270 in the yardage, frequently under like 2 or less touchdowns. Now, when he played the Raiders, who didn't make any defensive adjustments, he shredded them. But really, after like week 3 or 4, it wasn't many good games for Mahomes from a fantasy perspective, for what we certainly expect from him. So those are where the problems lie. So look, fantasy managers, here's how you have to look at it. You have to make a decision. You have to decide how you feel the Chiefs are going to approach it. If you feel Mahomes can consistently take what the defense gives him, then Juju Smith-Schuster, who's going as wide receiver 23, he's a steal. Because if they take that, Juju wins against zone defense. He's been doing it his whole career. Now, playing with Ben Roethlisberger didn't help. His numbers weren't good. Ben Younger, yes, when Juju had that great season, when Le'Veon Bell was there and Antonio Brown was there. But as Ben's arm went down, he just didn't give Smith-Schuster's the chance to win. So Juju, again, if you believe that Mahomes is going to play the patient game, Smith-Schuster could rack up 100 catches. But if he doesn't play that game, Smith-Schuster gets lost in the shuffle. Just make your decision. Sky Moore, the wide receiver 45. It's kind of the same deal, but it's weird. The same deal is that he specifically seemed to be drafted as that underneath guy. Huge hands, can get open in the short area, not incredibly speedy, doesn't need to be. He could get open, and he would be like that zone buster for these high shell defenses. But in the one preseason game in week 2, there were 2 passes thrown to Sky Moore. Both of them were deep shots. Now, I don't know if they were just testing the water. Sometimes in preseason games, we work on things. I certainly hope their goal wasn't to let Patrick Mahomes air it out. And in that Washington game, he aired it out quite a bit. And if that's their stance going into the season, the defenses will not give him that. And Travis Kelce, you've heard me talk about it a lot. Look, he's going to get targets. We know that. No Tyreek Hill. But I'm telling you, defenses are going like they did. He had 6 bad games last year. Kelce only had 2 bad games combined in the prior 2 years because defenses were starting to beat him up at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't like that. And they were starting to commit an extra defender to him because once Tyreek Hill was bracketed over the top, it was like, okay, now fine. If Tyreek's going to do his damage underneath, fine. But we don't want that security blanket there. So 6 bad games for Kelce. Now Kelce's 33. Defenses will continue to punish him at the line, and they will bracket him better than ever because there's no Tyreek Hill. Nobody in that receiving core besides Kelce scares defenses. So they want Mahomes to be uncomfortable. They will do everything they can to bracket Kelce and make Mahomes go elsewhere. He may get 100 catches. He may. But I don't think his yardage is going to be high. It could be like literally 100 catches for 970, which if you're drafting him as the tight end 1, that's not a value. All right. So anyway, that's my overall take. You need to make your decision. But remember, this is not the same Chiefs offense that ran roughshod over the league from 2018, through the first quarter of the 2021 season. You have to take a hard stance here. I have Mahomes my quarterback 6. I'm not backing off. All right, injury news. And I'll take questions at the end. Thank you for those who are here. Brian Robinson, look, all that matters to me is Brian Robinson healing up. I want that poor gentleman to get better. I hope emotionally he can get through this. I can't imagine how horrible the young man felt to actually be terrorized and shot in his own car. My heart just goes out to him and his family. That's all I care about. But I'm a fantasy analyst, so I have to give you the news that basically the report is there's no decision made. The team will talk with doctors and decide if they're going to put him on the non-injury list, which would put him out for 4 games. Be aware of that. But the poor man got shot in the glute and in the leg, and I'm not even sure how many times he got hit. Again, prayers out to Brian Robinson and his family. I feel horrible. No good segue there, okay? J.K. Dobbins, Mike Davis, and Gus Edwards. So, look, what would the 2022 season be without your daily Dobbins update? Coach Harbaugh, again, unsure if Dobbins with the knee will be ready to go, but we've known that. That's the storyline all along. But what I want you to know is this. We talked yesterday's report, I believe, on the video that Dobbins, it's unlikely going to have a heavy workload early in the season. Gus Edwards is already down for 4 games, and it could be more. I don't think Mike Davis is any great shakes at running back, but look, he's going to be available. Their line is going to be better than last year. They invested in tight ends in the draft. They have Lamar Jackson as a mobile quarterback. Mike Davis, if you are drafting late in your rounds, you need a running back because you're short on your running backs. I think you could get 3 to 4 weeks of good production out of him. Maybe it goes a little longer. Now, Mike Davis tends to start hot frequently in his career, and then he tails off quickly because that's just the player he is. So, and I will get that question. Hopefully in your 10 minutes, I'll have that question answered for you. So anyway, I don't know when Edwards is coming back. Davis, very, very late, but if you need early running back help, you can probably start him. And Dobbins, at some point, we'll find out if he gets ramped up. But the fact he's not healthy now, that does scare me. Najee Harris popped up in the news. So we find out that he was dealing with a Lisfranc sprain that he suffered on the first day of training camp, but he showed up in the preseason game on Sunday. So that bodes well. So you could draft him as you normally would. All right. The fantasy community is somewhat down on him. Yeah, I know he's still going in the first round. I get it. But people are putting him toward the end of the first round. Why? Because they think that Najee Harris didn't do very well last year on all the work he had. They think it was a volume-driven pick. I get it. But here's what I want you to think about. Just consider this. When Ben Roethlisberger was at quarterback the last 2 years, basically defenses loaded up. They didn't put people deep at all. They dared Ben to beat them with their arms. So they had everybody close to the line of scrimmage. And when defenses would, let's say, blitz, because it wasn't always a blitz. Sometimes a mush rush. What they would do is they would just send bodies. And those bodies would either be there to smash the run game or be there to get to Ben if he didn't get the ball out in the 2.5 seconds he did in fear of getting hit. So Najee really didn't have a chance. Now, say what you will about Mitchell Trubisky. I do believe the offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, he wants his quarterback some RPO. He wants him on the move, some boot action. Mitchell Trubisky, when he did well at times in Chicago, it's what we saw actually from Justin Fields with a different coaching staff in this recent preseason game. When you roll a quarterback out to one side, he only has to read half of the field. Mitchell Trubisky could read half the field In my mind, he's unable to consistently read the whole field. Now, if you roll him out, all of a sudden you got a mobile quarterback. And again, I talk about this all the time. Your linebackers have to play completely different. And also, when you have the mobile quarterback, the safeties have to play a little bit different. So Najee Harris, in my opinion, will have much more running room in terms of running lanes this year. Will he get all the dump offs he got from Ben? Maybe, maybe not. Ben was get rid of the ball whenever he could. A lot of those dump offs were just to save Ben from getting hit. I can't say he's going to get as many targets, but I can't say that's not the case either, because if they design screens to him, that could work well. But I almost can guarantee you this: defenses are not going to compress the field as much with Trubisky as they did with Ben Roethlisberger. So take that information for what you will. I'm not saying Najee Harris is the world beater, RB1 overall, but I am saying I think those who are breaking him down, it's a very crude and basic breakdown, and I don't think it takes into account how defenses will approach them. You know what, Joe, and now just is on this, I'll answer since it's on the question. The offensive line is better than we think. It actually showed improvement, and they made 2 additions to the offensive line this year where they added a couple decent run blockers. If you have a mobile quarterback, your offensive line isn't quite on the hook the some way, because natural running lanes emerge. And look at it this way. Could he have as bad of a line as last year? No. The line is going, they drafted some people, another year of experience. I saw signs of life from that line. They're not going to be a world beater line. This isn't the Mike Munchak coach lines of 5 years ago, but this line could be number 20, 22. That's better than number 29 or 30, which they were in a lot of different metrics last year. So I think the line's a little better. That mobile quarterback changes the equation a lot. So that's a great question. All right, Miles Sanders, next, been over 2 weeks since he's on the practice field, that hamstring injury. We don't know if it's a precautionary holdup, which it could be, or if the injury is serious. So there's no indication to his Miles Sanders week 1 status. I just want you to be aware of that. Now, his draft stock has not gone high. Miles Sanders is not being respected a lot in fantasy drafts. But what I'm thinking is this. I am high on Kenny Gainwell. When Kenny Gainwell had games with, I believe it was at least 23 snaps last year, he was in the double-digit PPR points in every one of those games. He was a good receiver, fairly good in the red zone when used, and I think he's getting extra reps with Sanders out. And I believe the coaching staff, if Gainwell is showing well them, and we really don't know how they're viewing him, Gainwell could take more work than we would think. So I do think that's something we could think about. I do. I've got Kenny Gainwell, a lot of shares. Different drafts, different rounds, tougher drafts. I have to draft him a little earlier, but their drafts have got him in the double-digit rounds. And I think, look, maybe he won't do a ton, but I think there's a lot of scenarios where Kenny Gainwell becomes a staple on your fantasy team. All right, every day, Dameon Pierce news, but it came up today. So Lovie Smith, the coach, he still won't name a starting running back. But look, he had plenty of good things to say about him in his presser. He also treated him like the starter when they rested players in the second preseason game. Now, here's the issue, guys and gals. He's being drafted as the RB23. If he doesn't seize at least 70% of that backfield, I don't know how you're the running back 23. He's in the draft zone now with Elijah Mitchell, David Montgomery, a few other running backs that we know are going to get a decent workload. If game script forces the Texans to be pass heavy because of trailing, Rex Burkhead could have a significant role. Look, Marlon Mack, despite where his spot on the depth chart is, he actually looked good in the preseason. I don't think he just gets relegated to no work at all. I think there's a very good chance that Pierce leads the backfield but only gets 55% of the work. And at running back 23, I could get A.J. Dillon getting 50% or more of the backfield work in Green Bay at right about the same draft cost, in a much better situation where they'll use him a lot more. All right, Alexander Mattison, there's rumors that he could be traded with any of at least 12 teams. Now, if that report is right, and it was Chris Thompson, the St. Paul Pioneer Press, who reported that means there are trade discussions going on, and that means that there's probably a good chance he gets dealt. Well, why would the Vikings do it? Because they drafted Ty Chandler, they got Kenny Nwangwu. So I think what happens, so Mattison, if he gets dealt, obviously, in most places he goes, the starter isn't as good as Dalvin Cook, so he probably gets into the mix a little heavier, at least on a week-to-week basis. And If it's a system that's inside run heavy, Mattison's very strong. See, I personally, you've heard me say this before, I did not think Mattison was a fit for the outside zone scheme. I thought that he was a poor fit for that. When we've seen him on general runs like that in the past, that's when he's typically lost yardage and got stuffed. So I think that the trade talks are for that reason, not just that they drafted people, and they may have drafted people because they felt Atlanta would be a good spot for him. Yeah, I could see that, unless they like Tyler Algier. But Mattison, depending what they're giving up, why not, right? So, but that said, Mattison is interesting, but Ty Chandler and Nwangwu, my guess is I wouldn't necessarily say one's going to be the direct backup. I think they're going to be like a committee. Nwangwu will probably see more passing work, Chandler a little more, interior work. And so that's what I would look at. But Mattison, if you're going to draft on the assumption he's being Minnesota, just think about, he could be in a different situation, maybe a better one. All right, Jimmy Garoppolo's next. Adam Schefter reported Garoppolo agreed to a restructured contract, and he'll back up Trey Lance. He's not going anywhere because there's a no trade clause in his deal. Wow. So those that were hoping Garoppolo would end up somewhere else, not going to happen this year. All right. Sony Michel got released today. So, all right, for the Rams last year, he had 845 yards and 4 touchdowns on 204 carries. We like those numbers. It's respectable numbers. But he really gave them average production. It was like after contact, 2.2 yards. It was 54th percentile. So very ordinary after contact. He had a nice run where he got a lot of volume. It was a 4-game stretch. He had 25 carries and an average, 106 yards and 0.5 touchdowns. It was a great fantasy stretch. But other than that, he wasn't uber productive. And the coaching staff, Sean McVay, started backing off him because there was meat on the bone. He wasn't getting what they wanted out of the runs. And so that was basically the problem. So, but anyway, that said, Sony Michel probably emerges somewhere else. So if you're drafting in a deep, deep draft and people know he's been cut, they're not going to draft him. And if you have a deep bench and you make a last round pick, take a flyer. Maybe he ends up somewhere where he gets, part of a timeshare. And you know what? Week 2 comes, cut him. Go to the waiver wire. I love to have sometimes players that might do something, but I can cut them quickly because I'm not tied to them. I don't want to take that guy in the last round who I'm going to wait on all season to see, where I feel so invested in him. So sometimes that flyer is a player that's done something, but on the other hand, it may be somebody who you're happy to say, no, move on. All right, Laviska Shenault got traded to the Panthers today from, I got to fix that in my notes. I put down he went from the Panthers to the Panthers. That probably is not correct. He went from the Jaguars to the Panthers. I'll fix that in my article. Anyway, so now if Terrace Marshall and or Robbie Anderson repeat the inefficiency of last year, Shenault could move into a prominent role. He's over 6'1", 227, and he played his best when getting the ball in the slot. Now, here's the rub. You don't know that the Carolina coaching staff will figure out that despite his size, he's a slot receiver. In today's 2 high shells, he's perfect for that. Getting him underneath, getting his big body in space, great target, can bully people after the catch. That said, with only one of those 2 receivers having the kind of bust, and we've seen it before, with the possibility that Shenault could get into the slot, I think taking him in a deeper bench league, yeah, I think so. A new change of scenario would definitely work for him. All right, we got time for some questions here and some comments. All right, let's see what we got here. So, Kevin, would I try to acquire Diggs for Elijah Mitchell and Jerry Jeudy in Dynasty? Stephon Diggs, I want to look up his age. He's been around a little bit of a while, and sometimes I don't like to grab older receivers. We see it all the time. When they hit 30, things don't necessarily work out so well. Let me see how old Diggs is. He's 28 right now. Well, he turns 29 later in the season. If you're going for a title this year, then I think so. I still think Mitchell is really going to be an excellent running back in the NFL. That's my personal opinion. I was very high on him before the NFL draft, running that 4.33 with decent size, not feature back size, but he's got good size. Now, I'm not sold on Jerry Jeudy. So if you're not sold on him, and if you're not sold on Mitchell, then you make the deal. If you're saying, well, not so much, then do that. I'm high on Mitchell, so I wouldn't make that deal. Give me a younger running back who has 3-4 years before, things start to slow down a little bit. I would go that route. But like I said, if you don't like Mitchell, then I think you pull that trade off, definitely. My favorite running back to jump inside the top 10 this year, I would look at my rankings. When I ask that question, it's always one of those things like, who am I missing here? So, of course, Mitchell, everybody knows I'm super high on him with Trey Lance opening up running lanes because of that mobile quarterback in there. Let's see who I'm looking on my list real quick who can pop into that top 10. Chase Edmonds, it would be crazy if he did it. And I'm not predicting he will, but with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle with that speed on the field, opening stuff up underneath, I think there could be a lot of opportunity under, and the line is improved in Miami. He had a terrible line in Arizona. Edmonds is a good pass catcher, and we see pass catchers, they have a big edge over runners. That might work there. And if Ramondre Stevenson, and I know a lot of people don't like him, but if he can see some early down work, or if Dameon Harris gets traded, there was whispers, I don't know that's going to happen, but if Stevenson got into a heavier role there, I think he can catch it. I know he can run, and I think he could get somebody I could bump into that top 10 as well. All right. Yes, definitely. Amen. Brian Robinson. Yes. I hope he gets better very soon. Bialy, where am I on Gibson? So right now, with the unfortunate news of Brian Robinson, we don't know how long he'll be out. I hope he's back tomorrow. I know it won't happen because of a surgery, but that said, I would be surprised if it wasn't at least 4 weeks, and it could be way longer. I have no idea the extent of the injuries, and I don't want him hurt. All right, get that. But Gibson will now be the lead back with McKissick mixing on third down, and we know Gibson's an RB1. He's like between running closer, RB13, RB10 last 2 years per game. And his shin isn't broken this year. Imagine that. So he may not be the anticipating type runner that they like to have from the coaching standpoint, but we know he's going to be effective when he's on the field, and they will throw him the ball. So if you want a starting running back for a month, and depending, who knows what the injury is for poor Brian Robinson, but maybe longer, I think you could draft Gibson. You probably can. I still think you're going to be able to get him in the top 30. I don't draft him inside the top 30 because I don't think his ADP will go up that high because people were already out on him before anyway. So I think that's about where you put him. Sneaky gems. Nico Collins, really X-type receiver. He can line up on the line of scrimmage against press man coverage. We saw even in the preseason, he can win in man-to-man coverage. And we saw Davis Mills throw the ball his way. Houston had no draft picks last year, and yet they traded one of them to get Nico Collins. They traded up, and I think he's one of those late players he targeted. Look, you're in a PPR league, and I know he got hurt all the time his whole career. Jerick McKinnon, we saw down the stretch, he's the receiving back, and they won't overuse him. They did in the playoffs. They overuse him in the playoffs, but I think he's going to be the third down back. He's only going to play about 20 snaps a game, but he could come out with 4 to 5 catches in a lot of games, occasional rushing attempts. So I think he's like a sneaky gem late too. But, I get he's old. He gets hurt. A lot of people gave up on him years ago. I get that. We talk about Kenny Gainwell. He's not late, but in mid rounds. And look down my list here real quick here. Amir Abdullah, that he could come out with that James White role in Josh McDaniels' offense in Las Vegas. I think Amir Abdullah could be very, very beneficial as a pass catcher. All right, let's see who else we got here. Surprise! I think I got that. I got that one already. Violent Violet, you agree? Thank you. Justin Fields could jump. Yeah, for fantasy leagues, 100% Justin Fields could jump into the top 10. And we saw in the last preseason game, they are rolling him out. When they kept him in the pocket, he was under duress. And they don't roll him out the same direction. That's the key. Because if they rolled him out right every time, the defense just, they'd slant. They were rolling him right. They were rolling him left. And when you don't know pre-snap which way he's rolling, that gives him room to run. That gives him pat. And they're doing the same thing I talked about earlier about Trubisky in this video, that when they roll him to one side, they're giving him not just a half field to read, but they're giving him a short read and either an intermediate or a deep read on the same side. And what he did on that Cole Kmet touchdown was he made the roll out to the right and he faked the pass to the short one and the DB bit. And then Cole Kmet was open. He went right over the top. So it was perfect to read that half the field. So Justin Fields, yes, he sounds like he's going to be coached correctly. And so, yes, he is in line for that. And Joe, we talked about that line rate. Kevin, better finish the year, Joe Mixon or Harris, all aboard. And Aaron Jones, I believe Aaron Jones is going to, and I've been talking about this for months, and I'm hearing other analysts finally talk it up as well. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are both going to be on the field a lot. Aaron Jones, and I may have said this yesterday, I'm going to keep repeating it. He is no less talented than Alvin Kamara. He is no less talented than Austin Eckler. He's probably more talented than Eckler, actually, because of the running ability. But he's never been used to the degree he needs to be. And with Devontae Adams gone, he is going to be a featured part of that offense, in my opinion, as a runner, receiver out of the backfield, in the slot, on the outside. He is going to see touches in creative ways, and I think he's going to be an RB1 easily this year. Joe Mixon, look, all I'm going to say is this. After the Bengals went pass heavy in week 13 last year, all of a sudden his yards per carry went down to 3.5 a game. His touchdowns dried up. They became a pass-first team. And it was like Mixon required getting into a rhythm. He had those 28 carry games, like 3 of them, and he'd get in that rhythm and he would go off. But when he was only getting 15 to 17 carries, it was like he was never hitting that rhythm. That's my only concern. Now, that said, their offensive line is better. Teams are going to look for them to be pass heavy, so there may be a lot more room for them to operate. So there's a lot of good outs for Joe Mixon to have a great season. But I just was a little concerned in all those games on the stretch. He couldn't put yardage together. And again, it just seemed because that rhythm just wasn't there. But again, very talented player, great situation. Why not, right? Yep, and Candy Gainwell, bell cow, yes. All right, so Randy, hey, how's it going, man? Rams back to – all right. Yeah, I do like Akers for sure as a running back 3. If I got to live in as a running back 2, I'm good with that. It's coach speak, in my opinion, Darrell Henderson. They're talking about co-numbers, garbage. When you go back to Sean McVay's comments over the last couple of years, he consistently talks about how Darrell Henderson, they got to keep him healthy. They got to keep him managed. He's in, they don't want to get him hurt. Darrell Henderson's always hurt. Sean McVay has publicly made those proclamations. He might say they're co-number ones. He knows Henderson is at best in a small change of pace role. Cam Akers already was getting some heavy work, but the fact he didn't have any explosiveness coming back too early from the Achilles. My opinion, it's Akers 20 touches a game plus, Henderson 5 to 7. That's where we're sitting. So I'm very comfortable with Cam Akers. I have to think some explosiveness came back after coming back so early from that injury. All right. Cook and Mattison, well, like I said, Mattison could get traded. They're talking about 12 different teams he could go to. To me, Mattison doesn't fit that outside zone running. He's an inside zone runner. I don't think he's going to fit. I think they want to trade him so they can use their Ty Chandler and Kenny Nwagnu. I think they're going to use them in a committee. I do think there's a strong probability if they get any decent offer, Mattison is gone by opening day. All right. Baker's BFF Higgins. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, I think the coaching staff isn't going to really worry about Baker liking Rashad Higgins. But they traded for Shenault, so that tells me something. All right, let me see what else we got. Fields in the keeper league. Should I offer Hollywood for Mooney straight up? Why not? Personal preference. I like both of them. Mooney's wins in all areas of the field. Hollywood Brown on a pass-happy offense is going to be really good. Yeah, with a personal preference. All right, I think both are great. You want to put the two together? Why not? Put the number 1 receiver with his quarterback. I think that makes sense. Randy, preferred early round drafting strategy, non-PPR, 12-team league. I'm still saying minimum of the first 6 rounds, running backs and wide receivers. Load them up. Don't look for a quarterback until at least 6 are off the board. Then pay attention to the board and get one in that 7 to 10 range. Tight end, same thing. Let 5 go off the board and then start looking who you're going to shop for, whether it's going to be a Dallas Goedert, a Zach Ertz, a Cole Kmet a little later. That's the strategy. Pound those running backs and receivers, 6 or more picks, depending how the rate the quarterbacks and tight ends are coming off the board. All right. Thank you, everybody. Hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.